Hey everybody, this is Professor Lilly, and I want to just briefly talk to you about the guidelines for the week 9 presentation or paper that you should be working on. Um, I'm sorry, week 8, the music as popular culture project that you are working on right now, and that basically wraps up this 3 week module here. Now, before I get to that, I just want to give you a heads up that after this, for next week, we have another module that's focusing on, I call it TV film, because kind of the ways you would analyze a television series or show are pretty much the same as you would if you were going to analyze a film, even though in the projects we're going to be watching television series as opposed to film. There are some courses in what is called film studies in the writing department and a couple other departments at Loyola, and you would find similar courses at other universities focusing on film studies or close readings of films. So for this week or module, rather, I chose to focus on television. Um, and so the only reason I'm mentioning it now is that for week 9, you're going to have to, or really for the whole module, choose a genre group. So similar to the music module. So we have 5 genres here: teen fantasy, suspense, film noir, or crime, or the same category. Sitcom, historical fiction, and sci-fi. So for each one of these, I've given several different series that you can watch, and each group does not have to choose one of these. So each individual student in each group chooses a series to watch one season of. Certainly, you can watch more than one season. That's fine. For some of these, have many seasons, so it would be way too much for me to expect you to watch the whole series. Some of them only have a few seasons, but some of them are very long. So anyway, so one person, if in the teen fantasy, could be watching the 100, and a different person, maybe 2 people, are watching Smallville. Um, and the discussions and the projects are going to center around defining the genres and thinking about the genres, and then also doing narrative analysis and also fan studies of the different TV shows. So again, you don't have to choose among the group which one of the series. It could be any of the one. And part of the reason is because they are on different streaming services. So for example, like here in the sci-fi group, The Watchmen originally was on HBO. Now I think it might be going to Hulu soon. But it might be harder, obviously, if you don't have access to HBO to watch that. So that's one of the reasons why I've given you several different series on each for each one of these groups that you can individually choose to watch. So and you can go ahead and do this already. So you can see that the teens fantasy suspense group is already full. So there can be up to 5 members on each one of these, and so there's just one person sitcom, and then so there's lots of space in these 4 groups here. So this week in week 8, you can go ahead and get into one of the groups, and so that at the beginning of the module, a week from now in week 9, you can start the work. And it'll be similar to the music module, where in the first couple of weeks you're going to be talking about the genre and watching the show and discussing the different shows in your genres on discussion forums. And at the end of the module, you'll have a kind of paper/presentation where you present the results of your group research on that genre. And then after that, we'll have just a few more weeks in the semester where you're going to be working on a final project where you individually choose a genre and a specific cultural object. So it could be an album, it could be a film, it could be a TV series that you are going to analyze. So let's get back here to the end of our music as popular culture module. We are currently in week 8 and you are working on your presentation. So I just wanted to talk about that. So one thing to remember is that you're going to share, so one person in your group needs to share your presentation by Thursday in this discussion forum. So that's also how I will be able to see it, is when I see the post from someone in your group to share it by this Thursday evening, and then that gives us a few days after that for you all to see what the other groups have done and comment on it. So after starting Thursday, once these are posted, then you will be talking about them. So, but I want to focus right now on talking about the guidelines and just talk through them, because I was looking at them last week and they are fairly detailed. Granted, each group has 5 individuals, so I just wanted to kind of talk through them really quickly. So first of all, these are, I've been calling them presentations. So it's up to you to choose the format. And I've been calling them presentations. And if we were going to have, if this was a synchronous class or a face-to-face meeting class, then you would think of it being like a 15 to 20 minute group presentation where you get up in front of the class and you have your presentation and you talk over it to present the results of your research to the whole class. So one thing I recommended is that you can record voiceovers on some of the slides to give more detailed information on each slide and what you're trying to convey. In pretty much all the formats, Prezi allows you to do that. PowerPoint allows you to do that. And with PowerPoint, if you do that, then when you save it, it saves as a video, and then you would just have to put that video on YouTube and share the URL with the group. So, and one thing I did note here somewhere, that some of these prompts kind of are asking for fairly detailed or in-depth answers, and for those, even if you're doing especially if you're doing a PowerPoint where you're not doing voiceovers, then for some of these you're going to have to just write up a traditional paragraph or multi-paragraph answer to the prompt and just put it in there. That's not necessarily ideal for a presentation, but still, for some of these, just having really short bullet points would not work very well to answer the prompt unless you did a voiceover. So if you're not going to do any voiceovers, then you're going to have some of these answers are going to have to be in paragraph form, and then others can be in bulleted form, like so short answer like the names of bands or facts or statistical information, things of that nature. You do have to cite the information where you get detailed information. So, if it's a general fact, like how much money, I don't know, Metallica made from a certain album or something like that, that's a fact that's listed in multiple locations, then you don't have to cite that. But anything where you found research on the web and it's specific information or a specific idea, then just create a link. Like you would highlight something and make that a link in your presentation, so that when I see a link, then I'll understand, oh, okay, this is a citing back to a specific source, and I'll be able to see what the source is. So you have to have some way. You could also, if you want, have just an endnote citation, and at the end of the last slide, have a list of your works cited or references. So basically, a works cited or references page. Now, if you feel more comfortable, your group can choose to give the results of this research in a traditional research paper. So I think I put that here. If you want to, so you can just do a traditional research paper that would be probably several pages long. I guess it would be like 6 to 8 pages long, and turn it in or share it as a .doc or .pdf. So that's fine if you'd rather do that. Now, for all of these, you're going to want to also include some photos and or graphics. So um, and just to as an extra way of passing on information and giving um, useful visuals for whatever you're talking about, so especially when you're talking about artists or groups. Um, and also, if you can find any infographics, that would be great. So let's get down here. So you can see that there's 4 sections to your presentation or paper. We have introduction, history of the genre. We have an analysis of the songs that you've chosen. Each group has to choose 3 songs, and then also a short audience fan community analysis. And this doesn't. And so let me go through each one of these sections. So the first one we have here is the introduction. And one thing I wanted to note here is that and if you want to, these first 2 parts of introduction can kind of go right into the history of the genre. That's fine, because there is a question here about asking you to refer to the music genre classification article, and that can really be cited instead in the history of the genre section here. And if you're confused about what that is, on week 7, I asked you to read it, but it really didn't necessarily get into the discussion forum very much. So, but it's sitting right here in week 7, the music genres and classification. And this is like a kind of a sociological type paper, thinking about how we can think about music genres and classifying them. So you should refer to that in either the introduction and or the history of the genres section. And so the introduction, you're just basically telling me and the other students in the course, and to be honest, maybe I should switch that. This really here should be down in the history of the genre section. But you're just basically saying, here's what our topic is, the genre, and then also later on here are the 3 songs and bands that we chose to focus on. So the first main large section will be the history of the genre, and again, this is where you can kind of refer to how your genre fits into the definitions from that article. So describe the aspects of the history of the genre. So what makes this a musical genre? What are the shared features that any band or song associated with this genre would have? What makes it a metal band or a metal song or jazz? One thing to note, and you'll kind of recognize that a lot of these prompts kind of refer to things you've already thought about earlier in the module. For example, the role of youth culture. So you can go back to your the first week of the module, to that essay, and if you wrote a good answer or a good paragraph in that, you can just copy and paste that. So it's fine with me if you're kind of pulling from that first week 6 essay. Don't just turn in the week 6 essay as the presentation, because the prompts are different and the order is different. But if you had a good answer to that in the week 6, then you could just pop it in here and maybe edit it and refine it or extend it. So a lot of the stuff that you wrote in that week 6 essay can be used different places in here. And that was kind of part of the idea, is that when you're even, this presentation is very detailed, but you're not completely doing it from scratch. You're using what you did in week 6 and then week 7 to pull it all together in this presentation. And then lastly, here, describe some of the main subgenres, or for example, the Riot Girl genre is really a subgenre. So for them, that group, they can talk about, well, how is it a subgenre, and what in a way it's kind of also a hybrid. It's kind of an in between genres as well. Whereas the jazz group or also the metal group, those both have lots of different subgenres to them. So and for this, you can just have like a couple sentences on each of the subgenres. I mean, you could write a whole book on, and have been many books written on, for example, the different subgenres or different genres of jazz, for example, or metal. So for this, we're just looking for a sentence or two on each one of the main ones. Um, and for these other prompts, we're looking for a paragraph or two. So, I'm not asking for example, a whole like 1,000 words on the historical events. So you're going to have to distill it down. And for some of these, you could have bulleted lists, like maybe a paragraph of summary and then a bulleted list of the most important aspects of the or events evolution of the genre. So coming on down to the next part. So this is, right before we got into this module, you had the chance to do a kind of a narrative analysis of a television show or some kind of cultural object is what we were doing earlier in the semester. Also, when we were doing the monster theory, you were doing that as well. So this is a chance for you to do it again for each of the three songs that your group chose. And what I recommended that I mentioned before in the first video on this module was that you should really break it up. So if one person had a really good in week 7 identified a particular song and a particular band that they were really interested in to kind of breaking down and thinking about, then maybe that one person does it for one of their songs in that band. So again, it's a fine for you to kind of break this up. So maybe 3 members of your team focus on this. And again, this should all seem very familiar because this is the type of analysis we were doing right before we got into the music module. Then, so for each one of these, you would probably have several paragraphs where you're talking about the band, getting into the political economy, and a teeny bit of the history of the band, and then trying to break down, kind of doing a narrative analysis, looking for symbolism, emotional appeals, and it's all going to be very different based on what song and what band you choose. So some songs don't necessarily have a whole lot of symbolism that you would read into it, where others have a lot, right? And for example, some of the jazz songs you might choose, they're instrumental. They don't necessarily have a lot of lyrics that you could be searching for symbolism. So instead, you're going to have to talk maybe in your narrative analysis more on the role of the different instruments and the different performers in the song, and then a little bit and more about the history of that particular band and how it fits into the genre. So it all depends on what song and what band you choose in terms of how much you're going to be able to really get into a narrative analysis. Okay, and then lastly, I'm asking you to just kind of get into a short audience or fan community analysis, and we're going to be doing more of this in the TV show module coming up. So, but this is just kind of getting you into it and asking you to kind of take some time to search for those fan communities and find out where they are. Okay, so this is kind of just getting you into the concept of fan community analysis that we're going to be doing more of. And again, you can, these are for the 3 bands that you've chosen to focus on up here in the narrative analysis. And that's it. So, like I said, it is fairly detailed, but since you have 5 members in your group, the idea is to break it down, assign different parts of the presentation to each person, and then put it all together. And just make sure that you have some good visuals in there. Links or embedded YouTube videos, or especially for these songs, would be great. So some way for myself and the other students in the class to watch or listen to those songs by linking to probably to YouTube would be or embedding the YouTube video would be great. And then put it all together and make sure it looks nice and submit it on Thursday. And then I'll be looking forward to watching them and also seeing the reactions of other students in the class to your presentation. So if you have any questions, just have someone in your group email me and I'll get back to you pretty quick. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing these presentations on Thursday.